All right, let's get started. Hi,
Yeah,
everyone. Welcome. I'm Sumitra. I'm a success manager here at Linear B. And today we'll be going through how to get started with your engineering metrics program. With me, I have Elan. Elan, please, if you don't mind, introduce yourself.
yeah, of course. Hi, my name is Ilan Rado. I'm the head of product here in Linear B, or the color commentator, as our producer and director of marketing loves to call me. So I can be either according to your selection. Yeah, extremely happy
Perfect.
to be here and share some of our experience and thoughts around engineering metrics program.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. To get started, our quick agenda today is we're going to break this workshop or this webinar by two sections. Our first part would be talking about engineering excellence as is operational excellence, about efficiency and quality, and then we'll be talking about business outcomes, how business derives what you need to be setting up as your metrics program, right? Those are the two key parts that make a pie as a whole, right? So from the agenda, what I would like to quickly jump into is why is this important and how to look at it from a zoomed out perspective, right? So when engineering leaders come in, they have something called a dual mandate, looking at the engineering side of the business and then looking at business aspect of in here, right? We've done this quite a bit in Linear B as well, right? That's what we follow internally as well. Like we look at our operational efficiency aspect of how our engineering team is doing, and then looking at the business alignment. What do you think? This has been working out really well for us over the past, right? What do you think of? Is there anything that we want to add to this?
Yeah, I think out of the almost 140 people that we have here, I'm sure almost everyone are familiar with the current challenge that on one hand, we have to look on the operational aspect of the business, but on the other hand, in order to run a successful business at the end of the day, um, we have to look on the business alignment, understand the value behind it. And as a manager or someone in the organization who's being asked about an activity or an initiative, to be able and have those two prisms in perspective is
Mm-hmm.
crucial. It's hard. It's hard to have those knowledge islands in your head and compose them together. And we'll share our knowledge on
Mm-hmm.
how are we going to enable that using different views. But
Mm-hmm.
this is one of the biggest challenges we have today.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, it's like almost asking us to give us one single dashboard with everything possible, right? Like, hey, if I take a quick glance, do I see it all? Is it possible? Can you do it? That's what we're trying to look at, right? That's where we are going. And now, if you look at the operational efficiency and the business alignment, you can actually put them on a pie chart, right? When you do put them on a pie chart, you see how there is operational excellence on one side and then there is business comes on the other side, and then you combine the two and make it a whole here, right? Even though you're breaking it into four different quadrants, you're looking at efficiency and quality, how efficiently you're pushing code out, how you're managing your quality, so you're reducing your bug counts, your CFR, your MTTR, all of those metrics. And then we're looking at as business, right? Like, Lan, you've done this a lot for the business when you are trying to come up with a feature or you're trying to come up with a deliverable. You're looking at what am I, looking at how many resources you have. Are you able to predict when you're going to get this out, right? It's something that you do quite often on a daily basis.
Yeah, that's true. And when you have a conversation in your organization, you're always being asked on the, again, on the operational aspect, the efficiency and quality, but also on where do I invest my resources? Are these are the right areas, right? This is what we plan to invest? That's one aspect. And we all know about those discussions. No, we're investing too much, or we said that we're going to invest that amount
Yeah.
of money or that amount of people in that
Mm-hmm.
initiative. And
Mm-hmm.
we're also being asked to provide predictability in a
Right.
very chaotic and changing environment. When is
Mm-hmm.
that going to be delivered? When is
Mm-hmm.
going to be in a beta, right? And that's
Mm-hmm.
a big challenge again, and the
Mm-hmm.
ability to merge the data together and get at least have a good understanding of where do I invest, what's my
Mm-hmm.
investment now, and
Mm-hmm.
what's or create a predictable path for the organization.
Yeah.
This is something that is hard, but we have
Mm-hmm.
to, to manage our
Yeah.
our initiative, our
Yeah.
strategy.
Agreed. Yeah. With that in mind, what we're looking at is let's look at what does it mean, the steps we take to start an engineering metrics program. What is the steps that we think we should take, right? Ideally, when I am meeting my customers and we're starting this, hey, we're gonna get started with linear B, or they come to us, they come with an objective, right? They think they are trying to solve a problem for them internally in the organization, which is a great piece thing, right? So knowing what you want is important. But also, when you get here, you want to have a guided approach of how to do it. That approach is important because sometimes you're like starting from nowhere, but also having a starting point is important, which is where this comes into play, where you start with picking out benchmarking where your metrics are, right? Getting that benchmarking spot, then understanding how to diagnose that problem, setting goals, right? It's such a easy and such a hard thing to do at both times, because it's easy to set a goal, but it's also hard to follow that goal from time to time, because it's not something that you can immediately be like, okay, we've set this goal, we're going to go after this immediately, we know exactly how to execute it and where to go with these goals, right? That's what we're trying to do. And then of course we're trying to use this new interesting thing out in the world called AI and all those various automations that's out there. And then now that you've done it, you've got to see how to track this improvement. You've done this inside the org, right? You want to throw some color on this and tell me what it looks like?
Yes, but I would actually love to hear later, your perspective. You've done it so many times. In our organization, it really depends. It's not one size fit all, right?
Right.
Some organization might start from a different step, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
they already have maybe um, uh, the ability to view their own data.
Mm-hmm.
They're familiar
Mm-hmm.
with where they are, but they just want to move forward. So
Mm-hmm.
we started from the beginning, from
Mm-hmm.
benchmarking, and then moved up or down, depends how you
Mm-hmm.
look at it.
Mm-hmm.
But Sumi, you have much more experience than I on, so it's gonna be really interesting to hear. I mean, a story, share something around a customer that you started to implement, maybe
Oh yeah.
from the beginning or from the middle of the journey.
Right, right. Now, of course, I'm happy to share that. Let's get to a point where I'm ready to share it, and we'll share it. As we're looking at these different steps that we've seen here, right? When we've done this before, the world has talked about DORA as a metric. We've heard DORA thrown in all over the place, and we're like, DORA this, we're gonna DORA our metrics, right? It's such an interesting concept that people just come in and think that DORA is the answer to this all, right? Do we really think DORA is the answer for it? Like, what do you think? Like, what do you think about it?
Yeah, so yeah, you're right. Dora is being heard a lot. The way I see Dora is like the red dot on the map that says you are here.
Mm-hmm.
Lanes, give you the orientation of where you are.
Mm-hmm.
From this point on, you should decide where you want to go. So
Right.
Dora provides you, again, with the orientation, with 4 basic metrics, which are not that basic, by the way, because
Mm-hmm.
behind them you can find a lot of insights, but it gives you a glimpse into your organization status, and then you can decide if you want to improve your cycle time, or you want to improve your quality metrics, right? So start from here. That's the main usage for Dora, and then
Right.
go on. That's the way
Yeah.
I do it, right?
I agreed 100%, right? When I've done this with my customers, they're like, we want to make sure we get our DORA metrics set up correctly. That's our way. That's where we're going to get started on. And I'm like, that's perfect. You want to look at DORA, but Dora is also a engineering metric perspective, right? It's literally going into engineering and looking at it. You're like, okay, when we look at it, how is our efficiency? Where are we, like, what's our cycle time like? What is our deploy frequency? And then are we, looking at our bugs as fast as, are we trying to squash our bugs as fast as we get them? Or what is our change failure rate? How many times are we trying to not cause a failure in our production environment? Things like, which is good. You want to have Dora as a good baseline start. That's an important metric. I'm not saying it's not important. It is. It helps you get started. It can be a step one to what you want to do. But along with that, right, not just having Dora, you want to understand what to do, which is where benchmarks come into play, right? Benchmarks are important because if you don't know where to or what to set up as, how are you going to go? So, which is where we've come up with a set of benchmarks. We've thrown out a couple of our metrics out there and we've done the benchmarks and looked at it, right? Benchmarking is a good way to get started. It is a direction of where you can start and get towards, right? What do you think?
And we're, as an organization, Linear B, we had the privilege, we have enough customers that we can, review some of the data and review the PRs and create the benchmarks. And the way I view benchmarks is it helps you, again, orient yourself against the industry, right? Where do I stand? Depends on my organization size and stage. But again, it helps you orient where do you stand in different categories. And it helps you decide which areas or which bottlenecks you want to tackle and improve, right? So it's not a competition, although it does help drive, improvement. But it really helps you understand where are the bottlenecks, where you need to improve, and then act upon it. And that's the way I see benchmarks, which are really important.
Agreed. Yeah, benchmarks are a starting point, right? That's where you want to start. Also, what we've done in our report is that we've also looked into consideration of the engineering size, where you are with your organization as a size. And we've done where we've changed our benchmarks according to your size of the organization, right? It's not a one size fits all. We've also had in our benchmark reports where we talk about your engineering size and what the goals or the benchmarks for your organization should be or where you need to get to with the metrics that we provided, because then it's not a one size fits all. It's important of how and where, correct?
And Sumi, do you have like a customer or someone that you remember that you use the benchmark and were surprised to see where they stand? Like a lot of the organization we meet we know where we are, and then when they implement, the tool or the tool, they're really surprised, and then a journey starts. So do you have
like? Right. Yeah. One of my customers, when they came in, right? It was interesting. They came in with the set notion of this is how we are going to improve. We are going to deliver X percentage of our features on time. We are going to ensure our cycle time is amazing. That's what it is. The VP of the product logs in, the instance is set up. And if you see, he's like, okay, this is an interesting visualization of data, because as soon as you log into Linear B, you see all these different colors. He's like, wait, why is my thing in red? Why is my cycle time in red? What do all these small colors look like? Like, colors is such a visual representation, and the benchmarks with the colors that you see here are such an impact, right? Looking from red to orange to teal and then green is a journey. And then when you look at those color coding, immediately in your head, we're trained as children to say that, okay, colors mean a different thing and there is a reason for colors out there, right? So looking at these help improve them. So he was able to like take a step back and you're like, okay, I thought we were in a good shape. We're where we're supposed to be. And he took help of what we're saying in our step 2 of identifying the metrics, right? He figured out that pickup time was a big problem for them. That's where those numbers, like most of his cycle time was coming in, which was 4 days, right? If you look at cycle time, it's a combination of the coding, pickup, review, and deploy. Just looking at that, pickup was his biggest bottleneck. And with it being almost 2 days and 5 hours, it was a shocker for him because he was like, oh, okay, so now I know where my problem is, where my bottleneck is, and how to improve. So it has been an interesting journey for them so far. They've been with me on this journey, and you can see them like as I'm talking to them, it's like light bulbs flashing across. And it's an interesting thing, right? Like jumping on here. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm interested to, we cannot hear the crowd, but if you can write in the comments, where do you think, the biggest bottleneck in your organization? You can see those metrics, and it's really interesting to see, you have one perspective, and then when you look on the data, you're seeing a different perspective. And moving on to the next slide, it's if you want to improve your organization, right? You have to set goals. Otherwise, nothing will happen. And the way we see it is goals are the way you create motion towards your North Star. You keep course on the organization OKR, but you have to create like small, tangible, measurable goals towards those improvements. And those improvements can happen either by changing processes or automation. We're going to talk about that. But setting goal is a key stage that we have to do if we want to create motion and improvement.
Yeah, that's correct, right? Setting goals is such an important aspect. It also helps you with your North Star metric, like you said, Ilan. Yeah, like we want to ensure it's there, right? Maybe your PR sizes are the biggest thing that you're battling. Setting a goal around it will help you. It's an important thing to first A, identify it, and B, find out or come up with a solution. Also, like I said, right, one of my customers that had PR size as an issue, right? What he did with my help, of course, was that he was able to apply our worker bee alerting system, which they absolutely love. Every time worker bee sends out an alert on their team channel, one of the team members always is like, okay, worker bee, I challenge you. He sends me these cute screenshots where the developers are literally challenging a bot and be like, I challenge you. The next one, you will not send out an alert. Or it's just funny anecdotes that they throw at worker bee or throw shade at it. But hey, it's a bot. It doesn't care, but it keeps doing its job, right? Now, worker bee is in one aspect of it. The next one I would say is looking at goals and looking at what we call as SCI and plus, right? Tell me more about that because we have this heard across. What do you think?
Yeah, so again, asking the people who are listening, please write down what do you know about SCI. I'll give you a 20-second. And then how many people heard about it, how many people knows what it is. And then I'll give like a quick overview, but SCI, this is it's not a new concept, but it's being defined now in the industry, right? This is software engineering intelligence, and the plus, that's the automation side of things. And basically, these are platforms that are built to provide you with actionable, data-driven, actionable insights to your engineering organization, right? Linear B is one of them, but you have others. And the plus means that you have actually the actionable activities that you can do on those insights. So apply automation. You mentioned Linear B has a Git stream, which is an internal automation tool that you can apply to improve your processes. Let's take, for example, PR size. Make sure that the PR size is not higher than an X size, or the PR review time is being controlled, right? So applying automation will help you achieve those goals. So remember those terms, SCI, and then remember that you have to have some sort of a tool like automation to move forward and achieve your goals.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we learned something new today. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Alana. I learned about SCIM. It's always like, okay, what is it? We use it so often, and we're like, okay, it's something out there that people use. But again, software, automation, it's a great thing. Now, talking about automation, right? We've heard the new hub of Copilot and how Copilot is now the big thing. We'd say that Gitstream definitely helps with it. You can measure it. And also it helps with understanding all your bottlenecks. If we talked about pickup and you talked about PR size, the automation part of using AI in here will help you, and you should be able to use it inside, and it sets it up.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, Gitstream is one of the tools to allow you to measure the Copilot usage, for example. How many of my code is being written by automation or AI, right? And measure the quality and the PR size, etc. So again, it's the ability to view insights on your activities and do actionable
Outcomes.
outcomes
Yeah.
on that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Talking about our few step approach here, we are on step 4 now. We'll jump into step 5 of quickly looking at you've now looked at benchmarks. You've now looked at what to track. Setting goals is important. And then from goals, we've looked at using our SEI tooling and then looking at automations as to how to improve. Now, step 5 is to track that improvement, right? Ideally, you want to make sure you have a good tracking way. Do not stress on it, right? Ideally, when my customers come in here, they pick out so many metrics that they think that they want to improve at a time. My only suggestion to them is like, pick few metrics. Don't try to bring everything under the sun and the moon, right? Just pick a few metrics, slowly improve on it. It's not a, you're not running a sprint. It's literally a marathon. Like you're running slowly to get to the point. You're not sprinting. It's not a 100-mile sprint or something. It's a marathon at this point where you have to take it slowly.
Yeah, and I think it's really important, to emphasize that this is a commitment that you're taking into the organization. It's a change, right? You've seen it so many times. It takes time. It's not a magic that happens immediately. But once
Right?
it happens, this is a culture change, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I agree with you. Definitely a cultural change. Now, we've been talking about engineering efficiency so far, right? Let's shift gears and look at driving our business outcomes, right? What does it mean to drive business outcomes? Now, you are well versed in this because this is your domain inside our organization. You are doing this in and out. Like, tell me, what do you think that you are looking at immediately as you're going through these when you're trying to say, okay, business, this is what we think we should do?
Yeah. Going back to even I think the third slide, we start with a dual mandate, right? This is where we have to connect the dots. It's not enough to see just to improve the organization, right? It has to have a business outcome. Why are we doing it? It's not just to save money. It's to achieve a business goal. And the ability to view your resources and answer the basic questions, right? What in my team are working on? Is it meant to happen? Or are we working on the other stuff that we didn't think that we are working on, but, like support, tickets, etc. So that's one aspect. And the other aspect is, again, predictability, which is really, really hard in our domain.
Yeah.
Always in the context of your organization. Are you a new and small startup that is just looking for a market fit, or are you a more established organization who is looking for a year of predictability so you can plan your resources? It really depends on where you are, but these are the questions that are being asked over.
Yeah.
You are asking them or you're being asked.
Exactly, right? Yeah. Yeah, agreed, right? Now, you talked about how you're looking at resources and where your resources go, right? Just jumping into that a little bit more, looking at resource allocation. What are the things that you're trying to solve? What are the big questions you're trying to solve here at that point? Not solve, but understand, I guess.
Yeah, for me, this is one of the if not the important slide, right? This is where you translate your activities into dollars, into effort, into strategic direction.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So when we look on resource allocation, we are trying to answer three really important questions. What is the cost of my investment? That's in dollars.
Mm-hmm.
Or
Mm-hmm.
what is the effort that I'm
Mm-hmm.
in a specific initiative?
Right.
What is the strategic investment this initiative belongs to? And in
Right.
some cases, we will find that without the data visibility, we are losing track.
Right.
So looking on strategic investment, right? If we will move to the next slide.
Yes.
And I really want you to, if you have a customer that you remember that you worked on
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
that the first time, but just go through those 4 categories of strategic investment that we mapped. But different customers might map them differently or benchmark them differently. But we look at the world like we try to simplify it and then define it into new capabilities, new features, new shiny features, quality improvement, right? Improving our product quality,
Mm-hmm.
keeping the lights on, and internal productivity. So these 4 categories usually represent 80% of the world. And I really want to hear an anecdote or something that I'm sure you had an experience where you implemented that and the customer was like, this is the amount of effort that we're investing in keeping the lights on, right?
Yeah, yeah. So here's what I will tell you, right? Every customer come in with some way of trying to measure this internally in their organization. They feel like they have a way that they've established and they've started measuring it internally the way they would like to measure it. When they come into Linear B and they look at the way we are doing it, there's always a differentiator at this point, right? Because they're looking at a way that they're manually going in, it's a manual effort. And then this now becomes an automated way for them to measure. Sometimes looking at the comparison for them, it's always a surprise element when you've got a VP or you take this up into the board and the board's like, oh, but we thought you were doing this with the new feature development. You're spending a lot of resources in your new feature because everybody wants that shiny new thing that they want to keep developing, right? But what about the existing feature? How are we working with what we're trying to upkeep? Keeping the lights on with the existing feature. They want to spend effort there too. So it's always a funny game that they play on. Okay, where do we put this? How many resources are going where? How are we doing this, right? This also brings us to the point of benchmarking again, right? We're coming back to benchmarks into this and saying, okay, you've got a process, but you got to benchmark it as well.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Benchmarks, again, are tools to help us orientate ourselves into where we are against the industry. I'm hoping most of the people here are on the right side of the screen on the $300+ million a year. But if not, that's okay. You're going to go there. But these are the benchmarks we are using to orientate ourselves where you should. This is the X amount of percentage you should invest in order to have a healthy organization who is moving forward, right? So again, benchmark is really important and use them to orientate yourself, but it's not one size fits all, right?
Mm-hmm.
Adjust it to yourself. And
Yeah.
if you want to dive into the details, and that's the next slide, the ability to drill into the actual initiatives and review the data in more granularity, not just on those 4 big categories we define. Now diving into each and every project, epic, initiative, this is crucial to manage the day-to-day life, right, of the
Yeah.
organization.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, when I've showed this to my customers, a lot of my customers, it's just such an eye opener where they're looking at issue type to start with, right? When you are taking this data up to our leadership team and to our board, what are the key things that you look at this, Ilana? It's just someone with a quick glance. Can you tell me, like, what are you trying to highlight when you take this up?
So these are two things, two main things. One is the issue types. What am I working on? Is it more bugs or more epics? It really depends on the project or initiative stage in their life, right? If I'm just doing the first release and I'm working on the QA cycle, I should expect more bugs. But if I'm already in general availability, this was already released to the product, to the production, and I'm still working on bugs, then something is wrong, right? That's
Right.
the second thing is I want to see my investment over time, how many people, dollars are being invested in a specific project. And it should align to the roadmap of the organization. And the ability to have this view on and have those discussions with my teams, with my C-levels is really, really important for a reality check and, to identify issues or success.
Correct. Yeah, it's important, right? So when you take this data up, you want to make sure that you're providing the right viewpoint for them to see. You're being as transparent as you can because the data is being there available for you to show up. It's a shield for you because that's what's showing to them, right? Now, from what you're doing with resources, jumping into the most difficult thing is predicting things, right? We can all not be Socrates.
Yeah.
We cannot be, right? So predicting the data here, where are you looking at this? Like, what are you thinking when you're like, how can I predict? Where does it get me?
Yeah, and great question. And again, yeah, this is one of the most difficult areas. One, because we live in a really dynamic world. Everything changes all the time. But we try to create few metrics that you can use to see where you stand and how do you progress. So planning accuracy and capacity accuracy are crucial for you to understand, are you improving? Are you reacting to the changes? So, capacity cannot change, cannot be the same month after month. People leave, people take vacations, right? So you have to plan, you have to adjust. That's one. And the second thing is that we're using past data and current data to provide you with insights. You have to see, you have to understand what's going on. But also, if you have the right insights, then what you would expect to see is, okay, what can I do to reduce my risk, my delivery risk? What can I do to improve my project status, right? So, and that's how you create predictability. Measure yourself and create insights so you can reduce the risk and improve. So these are the tools that we are using to allow, engineering managers to create as much as predictability as they can to their organization.
Yeah, agreed. It's important. When I talk to my customers, we talk about, okay, you want to predict things, but you also got to be better at looking at historical information. So ideally, when you run your sprint retrospectives or sprint planning meetings, just looking at what did we do on our previous sprints? Did we hit our numbers that we planned for? Did we have enough capacity to hit those numbers, right? Looking at that historical content, like looking at sprint over sprint and saying, what is our sweet spot? What should we commit to? And what should we not commit to? Also, looking at work that you do outside a sprint, right? Things that fall mid sprint and buffering it for. So, if your 80% of your capacity is going to be for actual work that you planned for, you have to keep 20% capacity for mid sprint work that comes in. It becomes.
Or scope creep, right? That's how we see like one of the biggest challenges. Yeah.
Yeah, scope creep is definitely a big concern for a lot of customers. Yeah. And then, of course, looking at your regular sprint work with your insights, right? As your sprint is progressing, looking at what you're doing with your sprints and where are your risk points, looking at the insights and understanding what can be a risk. What is a factor for risk, right? Are we like going in the trajectory that we want to go or we're not?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Now we've taken all this conversation of, engineering efficiency, business outcomes, and then translating all of that R&D data, in the sense the engineering efficiency data, back into business outcomes, right? Just thinking about it, looking at how we've taken cycle time as a measure and then slowly mapped it to delivering things on time, like making it a predictable outcome for us, looking at it, right? When you look at this for your team internally, how are you mapping it all together?
So one is understand that we have to connect the dots. Like we have different topics and different areas, we wrote down here in this slide, right? Productivity and profitability and predictability. And so these are dots that we have to connect.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, in order to be successful when implementing a metric program, right, you have to create visibility.
Mm-hmm.
You have to find and decide on the bottlenecks you want to improve, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to create the goals where you want to be. And lastly, you have to act upon it, either
Right.
by process change
Mm-hmm.
or automation, right? So
Mm-hmm.
these 4 steps will help you move forward, taking into consideration these five, main subjects.
Yeah. To summarize it all, they have to work in tandem. Your R&D and business outcomes have to work in tandem. That's going back to the dual mandate approach, that putting them all together is definitely going to help.
Yeah.
With that, Alan, we're at our end of our amazing talk. I thoroughly enjoyed this. I
Pleasure
hope.
soon to talk with you, not only on customers' issues or implementations, right?
Yeah, it has been a pleasure. If you're all interested, try it out. Quick 5-minute install. Take a peek. Let us know.
Yeah, thank you all for coming. And hopefully you find that insightful and talk to you soon.
Yeah, thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.